not recording yet? Okay. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning back in. Today, I have a really amazing guest with me. His name is John Fanuzzi. First and foremost, John is a very beautiful soul. Many of you may recognize him from doing a recent interview with Carrie Cassidy on Project Camelot. He's very well traveled, immensely self-educated in a lot of respects, highly experienced in business and several modalities of technology, brilliant at understanding the importance of numbers, words, colors, and sound vibration in healing our bodies, and so much more. Now, John and I share many common denominators. We're both here to basically finish Jesus's message and teach you who you really are. We've both been the true light workers through the years. We've always applied that need for the scientific understanding for the mind, body, and soul of the inner and outer workings, and that thirst for knowledge, the experiences that life has gave us, and the ability to prove it and teach it to the masses is how and why everything works has always been there for both of us. So I'd like to start with welcoming you, John, and ask that you give us a little bit of background into John the man, the soul that's here now, and take us through a little bit of your spiritual journey, if you would, before we begin.
That's a good way to start. Just how it all happened. I grew up with a really good set of parents and family. We were Catholic, went to church every Sunday type of thing, played sports. I was always the underdog because my brother was a superstar hero athlete. And I never had self-confidence. I always was afraid to speak in front of people. And when I became older, I quit my engineering school and got a really good job in construction with a big company. Made real good money, built my own house with my own hands, learned how to be a carpenter on my own by doing it. But of course, that in my 20s, then I became one of my friends says, well, you make one mortal sin, you're going to hell, like the Catholic thing. You have to go to confession and tell the priest you made a mortal sin, otherwise you go to hell, which I was like, oh yeah, we're all going to hell, let's have fun, So I think between between the years of 18 and 26, I was, I didn't believe in all the dogma and nonsense in the Catholic Church. But my father died 2 weeks after a flu shot in January of 77. And my father actually was a bookie. And I couldn't believe all the people he knew. And people by the hundreds, there were so many people came to the funeral. And your dad was such a good man. I kept hearing this from everybody. I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what would they say about me if I died? I was self-centered, egotistical, macho, it was a whole different world. But my neighbor came to the funeral and he said, you don't die. I said, what do you mean? He said, there's reincarnation, what? I said, what's that? He gave me one of Edgar Cayce's books, and it changed the course of my life. I was 26 years old, and I literally was reading everything I could, from the Bible to Cayce's stuff. Cayce was a very devout Christian, yes. And but he did have reincarnation in there, which most Christians unfortunately think is the devil.
Right.
And to me, it was the only thing that makes sense for accountability, because if there's no accountability, what is it? And how come some people are born with gifts and some people are not? And it finally totally made the whole spiritual thing make sense. Before that, I thought this is some kind of what kind of God is this? Created us all equal? No, wait a minute. And no accountability. Jesus saves. Come on, that's ridiculous. You go out and do some bad deed, and all of a sudden, I'm sorry, Jesus saved me. I'm a miserable sinner. And I didn't buy that from the beginning. I even argued with the priest when I was from a little kid in the second or third grade. And he was talking about the priest was telling the story of Adam and Eve and having children. I said, wait a minute. If Adam and Eve were the first man and woman, I said, and their children had, where'd they get their wives from? I mean, I was a little kid, and the priest told me just. I've had my eyes open for since, I guess, in the time I was little, but I didn't really like having to go to church every Sunday and go to Sundays. I hated it, but I had to do it, like a lot of us. So, but when I started getting onto the spiritual path, everything changed. I read the Bible. I read Yogananda, which was Eastern teaching. That made a lot of sense. A friend of mine gave me autobiography of a yogi, and I said, wow, this is incredible. I read some of the Buddhist teachings and anything I could read along the way. I was going to the bookstores, mystical bookstores, like it was one in New York City, and I forget the name of it. It was downtown, but they had wall to wall, all mystical, metaphysical books. And so I got into that. I started studying astrology and so on. And it made sense. It really did make sense. So I'm going to tell a story here that's my real beginning. I did silver mind control. I opened a health food store in 1978 because I had some money, and I rented a place, and a friend of mine was into health, and when I got into that, I went full blast, way off the deep end, and got into being a vegetarian and almost a fruitarian, and a little bit out of balance. But I, opened up a health food store, and one guy came in, and he said, this guy was a pilot, and he said, he asked me about cell salts, and he said, the cell salts are all represent a sign of the zodiac. I didn't know anything about it. Then he went across the room. He said, rub his hands. He said, rub your hands. He said, can you feel my hands? So he went all the way across the room, and I'm like, wow, I never experienced that. Then he told me about numerology, and I looked back. My birthday equals 11. And I noticed that my jersey numbers in sports were at 65, and I had 11 in baseball, 65 in football. I had all these things that equaled 11, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how could that be? I went on the airplane, my seat is equal to 11, and it's crazy things like that started happening. Then I started noticing that I'd have a thought, and I'd drive on the highway, and the numbers added up to 11 when I had the thought. It was confirming every time I got some kind of a thought went through my head, my number would come up. So that helped me navigate. And when in 1978, after I did a silver mind control, I thought that was pretty cool. I saw, wow, things are happening. You think of a parking spot in New York, and you pull up in New York. You don't usually get a parking spot. I'd be going to my polarity class in New York, and I'd always get a parking spot.
Wow.
Which that I was noticing I guess it's telekinetics, or whatever you want to call it, that allows your thoughts to manifest.
Yeah.
And I did the polarity training in I think I did a crash course, 12 weeks on every weekend, a long day, about 10 hours a day for weekends for 3 months. And I had a great teacher, and he taught us to go and work with, have a partner, practice every week, which I did. And I learned it like I knew it. I wasn't a great student in school. I was okay, but I didn't have a memory like I had when I started studying the polarity. It's like I knew it from another life or something.
Yeah.
And after our polarity class finished in May, I went to Florida, did some Rolfing training for 7 weeks, came home to New Jersey. I realized that stuff's hard work. I started doing more energy work, having incredible mystical experiences with my, when I'm doing polarity. I got in, nothing could get me into a meditative zone, but the polarity, I'd go into altered states. I had a few times when my third eye opened up, and I'm seeing the past or future. Are you there?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello. You're not moving your lips. Am I cut off? Wait a minute.
No, everything's fine on my end.
I think I've been telling this whole story for nothing.
No,
Hold
no,
on.
I have it all here. It's
I
fine.
don't see you. I
Uh-uh.
don't know what happened. Give me some raise. Okay, so we're threading this back together. So a big event happened. I did polarity therapy training in New York in 1979, from February through May. It was 12 weeks, intense, but on weekends. And shortly after I went to, I was really into body work. I went to Florida and did a 7-week structural balancing course, which was basically Rolfing. It was a Rolfing course on deep body work. And it was good to learn it, but it's very hard work. And when I came back to New Jersey, I said, oh my gosh, I can't. I had some guy that was an athlete, and it's like working on a cow, you know. He was big, really big. And it was hard work. And I had strong hands and everything. But so continuing on, that summer, I got a call or a message from my polarity teacher that we had a special guest coming to town. He's from India, Dr. Vasant Lad. The first time he was here teaching Ayurvedic to our class. Now, polarity therapy is based a lot on Ayurvedic, the Indian science of Ayurveda. And so I'd spent the rest of the summer with Dr. Ladd. And at the end in August of 1979, I said goodbye to Dr. Ladd. Went to dinner somewhere on 10th Avenue. I remember where we were, Indian restaurant. We were in all goofy mode. Said goodbye, and I gave him $500 to get a plane ticket back to India. He was going to go settle his thing. He was going to move to the United States permanently, and our intention was to set up a healing center in the Southwest. I wanted to get out of the New York, New Jersey area because that was around the time of Chernobyl and everything was heavy. So I left there, walking the street. We said goodbye, and that night I had a vivid dream. And in the dream, I was walking down the street, like really just, in a nonchalant, happy-go-lucky way.
Yeah.
And there was a man sitting on the sidewalk in a lotus posture, and he had a circle of people sitting in lotus posture around him. Well, I walked and sat right in front of him, and I was just, like this. Everyone else was very serious. And all of a sudden, he flashes all his lifetimes in front of me. He goes, click, 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 click. I said, this must be a master. Then he goes like this: I like your colors. And he touches me on the forehead with his thumb. And I woke up. I said, oh my gosh, that must be my guru or master.
I got chills.
It was a profound dream. I remember it vividly.
Wow.
So I set off. I had a Volkswagen camper. I set off for my cruise across the country. There's a lot more I could go into, but it's really a lot of details, but I'll make a long story shorter. I drove across the country. I actually went through Tulsa. I went into a bookstore. I picked up a bunch of books about the Great White Brotherhood, Ascended Masters, and I put them in my bag. They were in my car, and they looked pretty good. It was what I was looking for, this Brotherhood. But I didn't read any of them. I proceeded on to Santa Fe looking for a healing center. I thought that was the place. I absolutely couldn't stand the vibration in that town. I drove around. It's a hard town to navigate. Then after that, I went to Albuquerque. Oh, the vibration was terrible. I thought in Albuquerque, like it was weird. It just felt like I was very strange. And so I got in my car. So let me just have a nice tour. I'll go see the Grand Canyon. I picked up a couple German hitchhikers, and I had no problem. Hop in. I'm going this way. And they said I was going to go to the Grand Canyon. Well, I said, well, why don't you? I said, yeah, I guess I could go that way towards Phoenix and catch the Grand Canyon on the way back or something. So I proceeded on to Phoenix. I remember going I thought my car was on fire because I went from the high mountains near Flagstaff going straight downhill into Phoenix, and the temperature from the mountainous area was cool. I'm going down the hill, and it was about 120 degrees. I swear, coming into Phoenix, and I thought my car was on fire, and I never felt heat like that. Well, I got into to Phoenix at about 10 o'clock at night, I pull into this restaurant that was closing. I said, oh my gosh. I said, do you have anything left over? A bowl of soup. I've been driving all day. You have any? Oh, yeah, the lady was real nice. She sat down, gave me a bowl of soup. I said, by any chance, I'm looking for a place to stay tonight. You know any place I can stay? And she goes, well, I have a porch. You can stay on my porch here. And I said, perfect. Well, I did one of those Hail Mary. I said, okay, God, okay. If I have a guru, I need to know, I need answers now. I need to know, I'm looking, this guru came to me. I need answers, guide me. And one of the books I had in my pack was Spiritual Community Guide. It had all list of all the spiritual communities back in 1979. I think it was put out by the Yogi Bhajan's group. And one of them was, I opened to the page, it said, Teachings of the Ascended Masters of the Great White Brotherhood. And I was looking for the Brotherhood. And from what I heard about the Brotherhood, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And, if you have a burning desire, it's going to happen. Well, I prayed and said, okay. The next morning, I looked in that book, which I for some reason I didn't even know I had. I bought it along the way. I looked in the book and saw the teachings of the Ascended Masters of the Great White Brotherhood, and they had a group in Phoenix. So I went down to this study group center there, and I spent 5 hours with this lady. A million questions, and in the back they had statues. They had Jesus, Mary, they had Buddha, and I said, oh my gosh, look at this. And I had they showed me who one of the she told me the story about King Arthur and Knights of the Round Table. And earlier in one of my polarity sessions, you're not going to believe this, I'm doing a session, my third eye goes zoom in the middle of the session, and I'm up on a white horse in knight's armor in the courtyard. And then she tells me the story about King Arthur and Knights. I said, okay, that sounds like I'm on the right track here. I was very interested in a multitude of philosophies like Buddhism. And I mean, I thought it was all pretty truthful. And I bought a bunch of tapes. And that night I sat in my car and did a meditation. It was an album called The Buddha and the Mother. And oh my gosh, I sat there. I never had this happen. And she did a meditation from all the chakras going up. And literally one by one, all my chakras spun. Like I felt every chakra spinning all the way up. And when I did this meditation in my car. And the next day, that's when I made my trip. I proceeded from Phoenix straight out to Los Angeles. I had a friend, the guy that helped me set up my health food stores, his sister had a place in Los Angeles. And it happened to be about a mile away from where this ashram was. Well, on the way, I had a Volkswagen camp, but I was playing bhajans and just blissed out. I found something. This is really what I'm looking for. And I'm playing bhajans. I got pulled over for speeding, and I just went like this here in my lights. I didn't even care. I didn't even care. He's giving me a speeding ticket, right? And he just, I did the thing. I wound up there. I went to the ashram the next day. That was a Friday. I went to the ashram, and the date was actually, I think, September 12th or something like that. It was around that time. And I walk across the property line and I felt the force field, literally walking onto the property in the middle of LA. It was near Wilshire Boulevard and very dense part of town. But the force field was unbelievable. It was like our polarity class was like that. You walk into the room, there was so much light from everybody doing the energy work. Right. And I said, wow. And then the guy took me around. They had beautiful food to tell me stories. And I had a whole bunch of tapes. He said, took my tapes, he said, put these aside. It was a whole different vibration of music. But he said, he told me about this thing called Summit University. It's a mystery school. So I took an application, and he said, well, you can't come to Saturday night service because that's what is World Service Group and for initiates, I guess. So I spent Saturday night freezing to death. I thought California was warm, and I went up into the mountains, and I parked my camper. I had a ski jacket on and a bed up in the roof, and I froze. Well, anyway, the next day I go back to the ashram, and whole bunch of them said, well, we're going to go to the service at Camelot. So they, one of the guys drove my van and they handed me a book of invocations. I said, wow, this is pretty cool. We're doing prayers all the way there. We're doing decrees to Archangel Michael for protection. And I get to Camelot, walk into the chapel, like, oh my gosh, there's 500 people decreeing, chanting, and the force field was unbelievable. And I wasn't allowed in the main room because I was new. I wasn't in the fraternity. So I watched it on a video. And I remember it vividly. I went in there about 9 o'clock. I had to go to the bathroom. I didn't want to miss one word of the invocation. I thought it was so cool. We were doing invocations on world situations and communism. And I said, this is the word. This is incredible. And I was just, wow. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the I Am movement, I Am activity with Guy Ballard. The lady leading the service, her name was Florence Miller. She read from Unveiled Mysteries and read a chapter about Saint Germain. And sure enough, Saint Germain gives a dictation. Now, in my head, in the middle of the dictation, I'm thinking, oh, geez, this mystery school starts now. But I had a big contract job in New Jersey coming up. It was a lot of money back then. I said, well, maybe I'll do this mystery school thing back in January, next time they have a class. As soon as I had that thought, Saint Germain says, now is the time to leave your world behind. Something like that. I don't remember the words, but he said, now is the time to leave your world. I said, okay. So I go down to the bookstore, to book a flight home to settle my affairs. I had 5 days to fly home and get back. So I go down to the phone booth. I'm in the phone booth calling up the airport. And I look up on the column. There's a concrete column right in front of the phone booth. And here's a picture of Mark Prophet, Akhenaten, Hiawatha, exactly as they were in my dream. The same master right there, exactly as he appeared to me in my dream. And my dream was vivid, but he showed me a lot more. In the dream, he showed me a lot more lifetimes that I remembered. I remembered the Hiawatha one, and I remembered Akhenaten. There was a stone statue of Akhenaten. And I said, oh my gosh, there's no doubt. So I got on an airplane. I go back to New Jersey. Everyone thought I was crazy. My mom said, what, you're leaving? You know, I'm going to be gone for 2 I said, what? She thought I was really out of my mind. So my brother, I had my own house that I built in New Jersey. And it was like, really a change for everybody. So I get back off the airplane, and the guy, Jerome, picked me up, and he said, John, we got a special service. One of Elizabeth Clare Prophet's first, one of her closest friends just made her ascension, just passed on. I said, I figured that's where we're going. We're going there to make our ascension, this community, I was reading all about the ascension. And well, sure enough, I get there, and I'm going to meet the guru face to face. I go up for this blessing, a spikenard blessing, and I get a boom, right on the forehead, a blessing. I'm like, nice. She wasn't nice. I look up to her like, don't you recognize me? And she just gives me the straight arm in my, kind of crazy. But shortly after that, there was a service right after that. I think that was a Friday night. There was one, I think, for our class when I started the mystery school, Summit University. There was a service on a Saturday night, and Elizabeth Clare Prophet said she put a little podium up, not a podium, easel with a picture of Florence Miller. And Florence Miller was the one that was leading the service when I left. When I get back there, Florence Miller's picture is on the easel. And she said, I want everyone to meditate on Florence Miller. Well, I guess I was open, my third eye was open a lot more. And I closed my eyes. I saw vividly the Mona Lisa. I saw the Mona Lisa picture there vividly. Wow. Well, I started the mystery school, teaching, and we had a community service, and I was a carpenter. I was doing repairing all the doors in the mansion area just as my service thing. And one of the directors walked by. The fellow's name was Tom Miller, and he was an artist. He did a lot of the artwork and the music. I said, Tom, I had a very interesting I told him about the dream because Florence Miller was his wife. I said, Tom, I said, I had this vivid dream of Florence Miller. I saw the Mona Lisa there on this easel, vividly. He chuckled. Well, about 1979, in 1985, I remember the years, I met Tom and another fellow in the cafeteria, and I was talking to this fellow, Doug Kenyon, who is another friend of mine. He started Atlantis Rising magazine. Actually, I was involved with that with him in the beginning. And I was telling Tom and Doug, I said, I think I have a connection to the Fountain of Youth. And he said, Tom said, well, Doug was who was the Fountain Youth guy? Ponce de Leon. I said, oh, that's interesting. And then Doug told me, he says, you know, Tom Miller was Davinci. I said, what? Tom didn't remember what I said, but here I am, a complete stranger in the community. He's introducing Tom Miller as Davinci, which I believe he was. And I said, Tom, do you remember what I told you? I saw the easel with a picture of the Mona Lisa. And I think his wife, Florence Miller, was the model for Mona Lisa. Now, I had all these incredible synchronicity, of course, and anchoring me to something. I was not into joining any kind of church, believe me. And here, like, I have a master come to me. I didn't want to join any kind of religious organization. And sure enough, oh my gosh, look at this, I'm here. And I went through the, I joined after Summit University. Incredible. It was incredible mission teaching, all new teachings about the masters and life and living work in the path of initiation. And I got out and I joined staff, and I worked at the ashram. That was my first assignment at the ashram. And I had, from that point on, though, the day before I went to work at the ashram, Mark Prophet, who came to me in the dream earlier, that blessed me, he came to me again, and he gave me a complete tour of the ashram, introduced me to everybody the day before my dream. And then the next day I go there and I see everything as he described it exactly. So I saw he was showing me, introducing me the day before in the inner, and I go there and meet everybody. So that was quite an introduction to my whole path. And it led, I mean, Mark Prophet is, I could tell stories about Mark Prophet. He wasn't in the physical, but I had initiation from both gurus, from both sides, from the inner and from Elizabeth. And I was blessed. I had, my skill set led me to doing lots of personal projects for Elizabeth. And Mark Prophet, what a character. He was a character in life, believe me. He was real character. And I'll tell one story. One time I was driving the school bus for the students there. And this is in second level. I went to Summit University, and I was bored. We had like 12 hours of classroom study. I was bored. I said, come on, this is ridiculous doing it this way. I said, I'd like to just have my own bus and pull up, put a canopy down, offer coffee. I'll get more done than all this outreach they're doing. I just give people food and feed them and talk to them, put on a video. And I said, well, I had my bus planned. I'd put a place to sleep and so on. Well, I have this dream in the summer after I went up to Philadelphia. There was like an ashram. They called it a teaching center. It was really an ashram where we did our invocation and everything in the summer of, I think it was 1980 or 81. Let me think, May. It was late of 1980. And I have this dream. Again, Mark Prophet's in the dream. And he was known to drive this gold bus. He'd get in the bus and love to go across the country meeting people. Well, Mark Prophet's riding shotgun, and he's showing me how to drive the gold bus in the parking lot. And I'm driving this gold bus, and he's cracking me up. This guy's a character, Mark Prophet, in his physical when he was alive. He's cracking me up. I woke up. I said, wow, this dream was incredible. Well, shortly after that, Elizabeth Clare Prophet calls me up on the phone. John, Summit University is going on wheels. We want you to be the driver for the bus.
I love
I
it.
said, oh my gosh, look, this is phenomenal. This, you know, this, how this happened. And so I'm called out to Camelot to drive the bus. And well, I get out there, they show me the bus, and they had all the bus gutted, they had a TV. So Summit University was going to go on wheels, just as my vision was. Let's just do it in the physical. And we were stumping all across Montana. That was the tour was going to be. Well, there's places for people to sleep and places, and there was people up front to sit and watch the video while we're driving. My job as a driver was well, let me go back a little bit. I'm supposed to learn how to drive this bus. Now, these buses are not easy to drive. You got split shift gears. I never drove that before. And well, the day that I was supposed to go out driving to test, Elizabeth gets married to second husband, Edward Francis. And I was asked to be one of the ushers in the seating people for the wedding. And I didn't have any lessons. I had no lessons. My lesson was around the block one time, right? That was my lesson to drive the bus. And I'm driving the bus all the way from California every night to a different city in Montana. And Montana's all mountains. And you drive those big buses, you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
That's
it was, I'm the last one to bed, packing up, and the first one up in the morning, getting the bus ready. And my sleep wasn't too good. I remember one time I was so tired. I said, Linello, that was his ascended master name, from Lancelot and Longfellow. I said, Linello, I don't even know I can't even see. I can't even stay awake. I was eating cayenne pepper sandwiches to stay awake. I was so delirious. And I said, you better keep me on the road and drive this bus for me. I swear. And he kept me going. I didn't go off the road. And I mean, anyway, that was just one story. I had so many times the connection with Mark and Liz. Huh?
You've had so many enriching stories and series of sequences, synchronicities that have led you to where you are, that has helped you to gain this vast amount of knowledge that you now contain. I mean, it's, I'm just,
And
go ahead.
when I think back, my life was so choreographed. Everywhere I went, I was always all synchronicity from, you know, from that point on, everything. And it was amazing. Yeah, it really wasn't crazy. I tell people the quest for the Holy Grail is more important than the Holy Grail when you're seeking, when you're asking and looking for answers. And you know, I was on staff, and I remember we were always taught to make the call. We needed to find out something. You have to make the invocation. I wasn't really used to it. I said, let me try this. So one day there was another wedding going on, and one of the candelabras there was missing some of the petals and the cup at the bottom. And the guy that was I guess he was the interior designer, or he did all the making things look, I don't know what his name, what his address title would be, but like a designer, interior designer, whatever. Anyway, he said, John, I got this project. Mother told me we got to get this. We're missing this candelabra is incomplete. We got the wedding in a few hours. He said, can you help me out? Oh my gosh, I'm like, this is like impossible. How can I manifest this stuff? So let me try this, making this call. I made an invocation to one of the masters to find this thing for me right away. And I was walking around in a kind of a scrapyard part of the property. It was sand, and it was kind of you know, you wouldn't think you'd find. I literally made an invocation. I look on the ground, there's a piece of lead. Literally a piece of lead. I said, oh my gosh, look at that. So I took the lead and hammered it into the shape of this cup, right? Cut it. The lead was easy, malleable. And I made the other leaves. I found some sheet metal, and I manifested this impossibility. I said, how am I going to do this? But that was my first, first time I used, I learned you have to make the call. You have to make the invocation. That was, it works every time to this day. If I need to know something, I need help, and you have to have enough faith to have the master. You know that you got partner on the other side, and that comes with you have to have faith and trust like this plan. Trust the plan,
right?
With zero doubt whatsoever. You know?
That's exactly what I was told. With zero doubt, you have to walk in complete faith.
Zero doubt.
I want to
And
circle
I could
back
give, go ahead.
for a minute. You mentioned reincarnation earlier,
Okay.
and that's another thing that you and I have
Yeah.
in common. We both have very real life experiences of reincarnation. So real quick, if you could give the short version so that we can move on to some more questions of your reincarnation story that's personal to you.
I don't know if I want to get into that, make that public. We shared
Well, I mean, just
personally
like the
some
short
stories,
version.
but I found
Mother, was
how
it your grandmother?
how,
Was it your grandmother?
what's that now?
It was your grandmother?
Oh, okay, I can tell those stories. Okay, I could tell that story about my grandmother. Yeah, I don't think. Okay, I'm okay. My wife's offered me some water. I'm okay, honey.
How nice of
I'm
her.
okay. I got the coffee right here.
Hello,
Talking
Nora.
too fast? She says hello. Want to come and say hello? To my wife over here.
Hi.
Hello, beautiful.
Hi, he needs a little water, I can tell.
I don't want water. I'm fine. Anyway, yeah, we did share those stories. I can tell because people need to hear this, the proof of reincarnation, because I consider that the almost a requirement for people to be in a conscious community, because without it, you got a fundamentalist that thinks some guy in the sky is going to save them, and you have to become the master, you have to become self-realized.
Right.
So I'll tell my first story about reincarnation. I can tell you about my kids, and I'll share these stories, and I hope my kids don't mind, but it's pretty profound.
But if
My
you don't
grandmother.
mind, if you don't mind the short version,
Huh?
because I have a lot of questions I want to move on to.
Short version. Okay, I'll start with Rose. I had 5 boys from my first marriage, and on my third marriage I have 2, but this third marriage came about in an interesting way. I had gone up to New York to a trade show in 1995, and we had a business manufacturing massage and therapy tables. And I had a day off, and my grandmother was in a nursing home in Toronto. So I had to zip up to Toronto, which is about a 6 or 7 hour drive. And I go up to Toronto. I took my mother with me too, and my mother was in New Jersey at the time. And I sat down with Grandma. I said, Grandma, and my grandma's a little Italian lady, about 4'6" or 7, broken English, no education. She couldn't read, and she didn't go to school, grew up in Italy and so on. So I said, Grandma, I said, you're getting old. She was 95 at the time. I said, Grandma, I said, there's no such thing when you die. You die and you get a new body. It's like a car. Your car gets old, you put a new car on, you drive it. She said, okay, yeah. So I said, Grandma, I said, how'd you like to be tall? I said, you're welcome to come in my life. How'd you like to come back in my family? And she said, oh, yeah. I said, Grandma, and at all the time I'm doing this, I'm holding her wrist and her tricep, and I'm getting like amazing amount of energy. The whole time I'm talking to her, the energy was flowing like you wouldn't believe in my hands. So I said, Grandma, you like red hair? Yeah, I like red hair. I said, Grandma, you want to be smart? I said, you didn't have any education. How'd you like to have a good education in this life? Yeah. She kept agreeing. I said, okay. No, you never know. Well, fast forward, 2002, I had a guest ranch, and I had a big business going. I didn't have a wife at the time, and my Nora comes by, and she was leaving. She had a husband that left her nothing. She had 4 kids, and somehow I was going out, coming in, and she was going to leave to go to Minnesota. I said, come on and have a cup of tea. I said, look, I've got a big place here. I need someone to cook for me. I got so much to do. I need someone to shop for me. I said, there's no rent. Just do that. Just cook for me and shop for me. You could have the whole end of the house. You don't have to worry about your phone. It's covered. Nothing, no expense. You don't have to worry about utilities. Just do that. But we started working together for a few weeks. We really got along, and I started to recognize some of the, I realized who she might have been in a past life, which now I'm pretty confirmed. I was looking for this person, and I had the least amount of attraction for her in the beginning. I didn't have anything at all. But all right, so she had a daughter that was 5 years old, and her daughter kept going, Mom, you got a baby in her tummy. Her name is Rose. I said, she kept saying this, Mom, you're having a baby. Her name is Rose. And we were not connected once whatsoever. And anyway, that was kind of crazy story. I had a secret girlfriend, and it was kind of short, but didn't work out. And Nora and I, we started rubbing each other's feet, and I said, oh my gosh, there's a baby coming here. We conceived the baby. So I'm 52 years old in a spiritual community where having a child out of wedlock is taboo, right? We're not married, and so we were not allowed to have any kind of relations with anyone. And I just basically went with the Holy Spirit. I didn't hear the rules. I was just listening to my inner voice. And so we conceived the child, and like, wow, I really connected with my wife. We really had a great super connection. And so when so when baby was born, she has red hair, number one. I asked for red hair. And I wanted to name the baby Amber, and my wife didn't like it. And the midwife is going, hey, John, we need a name. I need a name. So I said a prayer to Saint Germain. I said, Saint Germain, I need a name right away. I got a call at 8 o'clock in the morning from a lady from the economic community development, a total stranger. And she hears, she hears the baby crying. Is that a baby I hear? Yeah. Is that a baby girl? Yeah. Is that your baby? Yeah. Is that a newborn your baby? Yeah. She says, does that baby have a name? I said, no, not yet. I said, we're looking for a name. She says, I've had this baby's name on my mind for weeks. I keep thinking of this baby's name. I said, you want to hear it? I said, yeah. She said, Rose. I said, oh my gosh. That's exactly, that was my grandma's name was Rose. So I walk out to the lobby, and there's someone dropped off a bouquet of baby roses. And my grandma's name was Rosina, which means baby rose, Serafino, kind of seraphic. And sure enough, I said, that's it. That's the name. No question. Thank you, Saint Germain. Thanks for the name. And that's one story. Okay. Then you want me to keep going, or I could tell them about four of them?
Actually, that's good enough. That's good enough. I just love that story. I wanted you to share it if you didn't mind.
Oh, let me finish it. Let me finish the story, though. Let me finish the story. Rose is 6 months old. Rose is 6 months old. And what Italian grandmas have, they have a big purse, right? And Rose is crawling at 6 months. She has one arm up in the air with a purse on her arm and crawling with a purse on her arm. And when Rose was a 1 year old, my wife took her shopping for shoes because she started walking. And Rose picked out get the shoes over there. I got one right here. I got them right here. Wait a minute. I keep them close by. She picks out the same shoes my grandma wore. All right. When she was, she picked out the exact same shoes. So that's kind of what they do with the Dalai Lama. They put artifacts in front of them.
Yep.
And, so I knew without a shadow of a doubt, it was my grandma. Absolutely. And so we had the Immaculate Conception. First of all, I consider this the Immaculate Conception, where I said, Nora, you don't tell anybody for 6 months. I said, we got to keep this secret. Don't tell your parents, don't tell anybody, because it'll be a scandal. And 6 months happened. All of a sudden, the cat's out of the bag, and the whole community's like, oh, John, you're not married. This is a scandal. I have 100 employees. They're all like, I'm the, no. I said, Rose, I said, Nora, I said, we're going to stay in the eye of the storm. We're going to be where the sun shines, and they're going to be chattering all around us. We did. So to me, that was the Immaculate Conception, literally. And I love that baby from, always the story, right?
It's a lovely.
I think that's the first time I told the story in a public way.
Like that's something you could actually make a movie out of. I think that's such a beautiful story. Now moving on.
I think it's good foundation anyway.
It is.
People to understand it.
Yeah. Reincarnation is definitely very real.
So
you mentioned earlier claiming your power, stating your intentions, making the call to the divine masters that listen to us and guide us all the time.
Right.
I'm often reminded, I'm sure you're familiar with Einstein's quote about society, that the intuitive mind is the sacred gift, and the logical mind is its faithful servant. but we've created a society that now honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And
I don't
so
remember that quote, but okay.
you don't? Oh, that's like my
No,
favorite
no.
Einstein quote. But it's true that society does make us forget the wisdom that the ancients, that our ancestors have known all along, you know, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that we should state our intentions,
Yeah,
claim our
yeah.
power, and call on the divine masters that are always there to help us. On your website, you're teaching about elemental polarity. And I feel like that comes into play here with understanding your true power and claiming it, because polarity is everything, and the elements are everything. So would you just touch on that and explain to people exactly what elemental polarity means, what it is?
Sure. Do you want me to pull up a screen and show it? Show
Yes, by all means,
the
yes.
outline?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just hit screen share here. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Let's see what happens here. And let's see what I can pull down here. Wait a minute. I've got to pull up my website. All right. All right. Let's, how do I do this? Uh-oh, wait a minute. No.
do your share screen first.
There it is here. Okay, share. Okay, there we go.
Here we go.
Okay, so I can pull this down. Okay, I'm learning. I'm not a
You're
zoomer
doing
yet, but I'm
You're doing
getting
great.
there.
There it is.
Oh, well, basically, let's see. I'll start with this one here, body astrology, and basically, in polarity therapy, uh, the its basis, unlike acupuncture, it's based on the ruling signs of the zodiac. You know, for instance, the head is Aries, neck is Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. Can you see my mouse here? Leo, I believe Leo is a fire element, rules the digestive organs, not the heart. I think Cancer is a ruler of the heart. It's my own take on this, and
Yes.
so on. You'll see the chart with the baby, and if you roll it up into a circle, all the signs of the zodiac
Okay, I'm
go
seeing
around
that.
from Aries all the way to the feet in
Gone.
Pisces.
Excuse
So
me.
the in
My-
polarity, there's a thing called the 3-element theory, the 4-element theory, and the 5-element theory. And the 3 times 4, basically, you've got 4 elements and 3 polarities. So you've got a positive pole of 4 elements. You have a neutral pole of 4 elements and a negative pole of 4 elements. Now, in polarity, if you got something going on in, let's say one element in the water element, let's say I pick a woman, water element, you've got something going on, let's say in the Cancer, that latitude's got an energy block. That also means you've got to find the energy block at the latitude of the ovaries, would relate to the breast. The wrists are also going to be very powerful. They're at the same latitude here as Scorpio. You're going to find all the organs, the water element problems here in the organs, and likewise in the triceps. And I put, I mean, there's without a shadow, I've worked on so many people. You might have to work on the points in the triceps or the forearms. That's where I held my grandmother. I held the tricep and the wrist. Very, very powerful connection for the water element. And in Pisces, for instance, you know, the heels, you know, you've got a woman's or a man's, you got the prostate and uterus and cervix on the inside of the heels, and the outside of the heels, you got ovaries or testicles. So what I'm saying, all in polarity, you don't just work if there's one thing going on that's hurting a woman, breast cancer, let's say, or breast issues, you got to balance all 3 elements. You can't just get it by going to one spot, and you got to find work until you get the energy flowing. If the energy really starts to roar between both your hands, basically what was there is taken care of. That's how it works. If it doesn't flow, you better keep looking, just finding it. In fact, one time I had a woman that was amazing. She couldn't get her cycle for 5 years. She was 25 years old. She wanted to have a baby. Someone said, you better go see John. Well, I worked her over, and generally I worked energetically first. Nothing was moving. I worked her feet pretty hard, because I worked the feet hard, and I believe you have to really hit the points. and the energy wasn't moving. Finally, I touched the chin over here, this point, and I touched her brow, connected these 2 points. All of a sudden, the energy was roaring. Now the chin, this would be a cervix right here on the bottom of the chin. I hit the jackpot. Well, after she got out, she complained to my friend, John works hard, and he worked really tough on her feet and hurt her. Well, guess what? After 5 years, she got her cycle and she got pregnant, right?
Wow.
So what I'm saying, that's an example of amazing. I mean, it's amazing, but sometimes it's not as easy. Sometimes you hit it right away, and sometimes you don't. But you have to match generally the triune function to get the energy flowing. And I just say I've had lots of miracles happen in my younger day, and I never did it I never hung a shingle or made a living out of it. I went to, with my business, I probably went to 100, 150 trade shows. I brought our sales crew, and we had pretty fancy booths. And all I did was set up a table, and I had a line from the beginning of the show to the end of the show, and I was doing demos. And I worked on, most of our customers were women, which is good. I worked on a lot of women, and I learned a lot from touching people. And actually, it was phenomenal. I was at a show in Vancouver. It was total dead show. But the guy next to me was from France, and he was selling this machine that for women, it's a vacuum cleaner. Basically, it does cellulose. It sucks your skin up and rolls your skin. And he showed me, well, if you have a scar, the energy is going to be blocked. And he rolled my arm. I said, oh, that hurt. And I'm like, he said, you have to roll the skin. He said the doctor that they invented this machine after he was a doctor that people went to, if nothing, in other words, last resort, people go to this doctor, and he was fixing them by skin rolling. And the next time I went to a trade show, I discovered that it matched the pattern of polarity. So if I touch the woman here, she goes, hurt. I roll a little here, here. I said, oh my gosh. So I brought skin rolling as one of my strokes. It's very, very powerful. If you have any place on your body that hurts, roll the skin. You'll take away the pain. Skin, and if it hurts, you got like scar tissue. You're not getting blood. Same thing with wrinkles. Roll the skin. It's the best cosmetic service you can do to yourself. Roll away the wrinkles and get blood in there. So on the airplane home from Vancouver, I was rolling everything, squeezing my ears, and like, wow, this is incredible. But I think I added 20 years to my life because I noticed I noticed something. But this triune function to me is the most important thing with the elements. And let's go to the next drawing down. There's a lot to teach on.
Just real quick, we're not seeing on the screen what you're talking about. What I see is the 10 star.
You're not.
Yeah.
You're not seeing that. Are you seeing this screen, the body astrology?
I see the 10 Stargate.
Oh, you're on the wrong. Okay, no. So I thought all this time I was on the screen. So maybe I can figure this out. I've had the same problem with Carrie. Let me click on something. Auto, no, rename, hide self view. Let me hide. I don't know. Do you know how I would get the screen up? Show.
Well, you had it there.
For some reason,
when you first did the screen share, it was there, and then it disappeared, and the other page showed up. So I don't know for sure.
Okay, I don't know. Oh wait, I found the screen thing. Here we go. There we go. Share. Let me pull this down here. And is it on now?
No, right now I just see your desktop.
Try that. Let's see.
Now I see it too, up in the top left corner.
Is my screen on now?
There it is. Body
Okay.
astrology.
Okay.
Yep.
And is it working?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Getting there. Okay. So I've taken some of the drawings in Dr. Stone's books. This was my favorite one. It shows the 5 elements of the 5: ether in the center, air, fire, water, earth. So basically, within the triune function, balanced in 3, if you got an issue going on the outside of the body, it's usually going to be on the outside of the body in the different poles. Okay, if it's in the center of the body, it's going to be more in the center. So that's the 5 elements. You got the four, that's the 5-element theory: ether, air, fire, water, earth. And that forms the aura, the bipolar currents. And and you got the you got the 3 polarities and the 4 elements. So that's in a nutshell. It's explanatory on the page, on the web page. I tie this in with let's see, I'm going to go to another page here if that's not going to screw us up too bad. Let's go to, I have a whole class on outlined in polarity, which I haven't taught yet, but this would be, when I do teach, I'm going to post everything on the site, all the steps. And I made this polarity class, I call it squad, so people can remember it. Simplify, quantify, unify, amplify, and define. Defy or define, something like that. So basically the class, each of the each of the 5 letters of the squad has 12 different parts of it. So my class has taken you a little bit more than our initial polarity class. I've got the basic strokes here and everything connected in my mapping. I've come into understanding the bones and so on. Basic philosophy is in the first to simplify, but listing everything so that people can remember it by the numbers. Then quantify. I mean, this is just observation. When you first deal with someone, you don't want to get too personal. You know, we have to see where they're at. You don't want to ask them, get into stuff like, well, you get into, you know, how do you sleep and skin rolling, you can do some diagnostics, but you start getting very personal when you say, where are you at? What's your path? Or do you have a goal in life? And a lot of people don't know where they're going. They're just there and there's no goal. And, you know, what are your passions? I don't know. You have to teach them that. Then you get a little personal here. Well, you got to get into your focus and accountability when you tell people that they have to be accountable. So I'm taking them through life here in a diagnostic way, but it depends how much they can handle. Because I will ask people if they have scars, how do they sleep, and I will palpate and find out where the blockages are. But then you have to get into some of their personal things. So if you really want to take the higher road, unify is all the 5 words: sanctify, purify, clarify. They all mean something. It's all psychology as part of healing. So you have to heal the whole body. Amplify. Now I'm starting to get into more of the geometry, the understanding where my platonics and symbols mean something. Understanding the phi ratio, mastery over the matrix. You know, these are, if you really want to accelerate, I'm talking about the whole path instead of just polarity. I'm talking about more of the path towards your self-realization or your ascension, and basically understanding that the zodiac is really has everything for a schoolroom. All the aspects of your life are going to be in the zodiac. And then when I get into defy or define, you're going right to the highest point, the ascension, transfiguration, resurrection, all that type of thing. Activating your DNA, becoming a multi-spirited being. So anyway, that's my polarity class, which I haven't done yet. I just put this down, but I want to do it in a different way. I want to put all the diagrams on a website. So when we come to class, we start using our hands, and they always can go back to the notes, and so people don't have to bother taking notes in class. It's all there. I have a link to Dr. Stone's entire book right here. It's pretty incredible. I found it by accident. It's got every one of his pages. He's got diagrams that he did, I don't, maybe 100 years ago. I don't know, but he's got beautiful diagrams and explanations. But Dr. Stone, his work was very, it was, some people say it was very all over the place, like my work a little bit. You know, he's random access. His books are, it was never indexed by anybody properly. And so anyway, that's one thing that I have to do when that's why I did a numbering system so people can remember, the whole system. So this takes you to his books. I think, I don't know if it's the same. Oh no, that's where we were.
The elemental
So anyway,
polarity, really in a nutshell,
what's that?
the elemental polarity in a nutshell, it essentially is showing people like visually plus the education behind it of how incredible the human body really is. And in order for people to learn to love their self again, they need to really learn and understand the true anatomy and physiology of the body that we were not taught in school.
Exactly.
So I hope,
That's right.
my hope is that we can educate as many people, young and old, the proper way, so that everyone understands really just how freaking fantastic we really are. So that that's going to give them reason to love their self again. It's going to give them reason to want to understand it and change
Right.
their energetic field within their body, and then in their 6 degrees around them as well. And this is like so exciting to me. This is my passion, because this right
Well,
here.
every family should have it. It's not hard to learn, and I want to do a similar program like Upledger did. I want to be able to, in a 3-day weekend, you crank through it, give them all the theory online so they can always go back to it, and then you're basically learning how to work the energy in the classroom. If they got any questions, they can always call or email. But I want to make it very simple. Instead of have to spend all that time in class, just the most important thing is being able to feel the energy. The theory and the intuition stuff will come to you, and
Right.
I think I can accelerate the learning for everyone that has a family. I had 5 boys, and they were real boys, and the only time they had to go to the hospital was when they broke, they had to get stitched up. But other than that,
Right.
I had broken bones. I had to fix in my hands. I had my son had a collarbone, compound fracture, completely broken. And I did energy work on him every night. In 6 days, less than a week, he was jumping off the top bunk bed. I said, "What are you doing?" And I grabbed his collarbone. I said, "That hurt?" No, I was pushing harder, harder. It doesn't hurt. The thing was completely healed in a week from
Yeah.
energy work.
Same thing with my
It's
7-year-old.
amazing. But I thought,
Yeah.
the bones are paramagnetic. They're little bar magnets almost, and you have a north and a south on the bones. So I believe when you put the energy from your hands, the bones knit quickly. I
Yes.
could tell lots of stories about my kids running off the roof, and I put them in my hands. I've had anyway. I didn't have to deal with doctor bills. Let's put it that way.
Right. I don't usually either. And my 7-year-old, she did the same thing when she was about 4.5, 5 years old. She jumped off the couch and landed wrong on a concrete floor, and had a hairline fracture right beneath her kneecap in the growth plate. And immediately, she felt like it was probably broken. And so I instantly put my energy work into it before we went to the hospital. And when we went to the hospital and they did x-rays, they had to do the x-rays 3 times to even find the hairline fracture break, because it was already mending that quickly in just an hour's time. And they were like, "How long ago did she break it?" And I'm like, "It was an hour ago." And they're like, "Are you sure? Because it's already healing." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure." And so, yeah, the same thing.
I had, yeah. And one thing about the energy work too, one is learning, develop, trusting your intuition. And number 2 is knowing your power and believe in what you're doing. And I forget them all. I've had so many miraculous things happen in my hands. Cancer is melting away, tumors going swoosh in my hands. I don't want to tell too many stories at time, but it's miraculous. If you can get the energy flowing, it works. And I have tools. I don't just use energy. Sometimes I got to work very deep, tamasic. Sometimes I got to do, I have to do skin rolling. I've got to do visceral work in the gut. Sometimes I'll just move the fascia back and forth. And I've had I had a lady that had serious cervical cancer. Her belly was as hard as a basketball. She was great. By the time I worked on her for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, combined energy work with myofascial visceral work in her gut, she went to the, I was down so far deep into her abdomen that I could touch every vertebrae from the front. When she first came in, her belly was hard as a rock, like a basketball, swollen. And she went to the hospital. She was ready to go for chemo. I talked her out of that. She went back to a doctor. She says, I can't believe there's nothing there. Gone, completely gone. How could that be? And with her, I think combination of energy. I did a lot of energy work first between, I held her wrist and held her arm, and huge amount of energy. And then when I did the visceral work on her stomach, you have to, the fascia is where all the records are. It's in the fascia, which is the connecting, it's like the, it holds everything together. The fascia is like the film, and you open up a chicken, you see that filmy stuff that holds all the little sack, real thin stuff. And from what I remember from, I worked with Upledger a little in the cranial sacral. I had a few levels of cranial sacral training, and doctors, let's see, Upledger said that the fascia extends from, you got the cranial rhythm going from the skull to the sacrum, but it's also, it extends into the fascia. So the fascia is all, there's this permeation that's constantly going through the fascial system. And I don't know whether I heard it or it's my theory, but it is my theory that the fascia connects the subtle aura, the aura, to the physical body. It's the interface, and it's very, very, has all the records there. So if you got something stuck in one spot, you got a knot or something, it's records that stay, that get locked into your tissue.
Right.
And those records are the same records that are in your aura or your force field. So, so what I'm saying,
I'm of the mind that the DNA memory is somewhere within the bone marrow. Would that be the same thing?
It could be. The bone marrow makes the blood. That's where the blood comes from. And the bones are paramagnetic and the skin is diamagnetic. So there's some type of a magical thing happening in the bones. And the bones have all these tiny little geometries or cube, like caverns all throughout. I think there's a lot to do with the bones and the blood, but the fascia is, when you clear the fascia, what's what yoga does. Yoga, you're stretching the fascia. The other great, one of the great body workers is a fellow by the name of Aaron Mattis. He has a technique called active isolated stretching, and he stretches you. It's always about increasing range of motion and going with the stretch, and you're stretching the fascia. It's accelerated yoga, and
Right.
his work I put right on the. He's a miracle worker. He's worked with sports, famous sports people. He's very famous, and he came out to our place and did a workshop one time. Fabulous work, but it's all in the fascia, stretching the fascia. Dr. Stone said it. Ida Rolf said it. Upledger said it. They all had the same. They all had in their book somewhere. The fascia is the key. Freeing up the fascia. The fascia is really, really key for healing.
So real quick, I just want to ask you what your opinion is on helping people to improve their health and their lifestyle, that they want you to do the work, but they don't necessarily believe in it with zero doubt. Do you find that difficult to be able to help them very much if they're not completely open to the notion that they can be corrected?
I think you're onto something very important. You don't want to waste your energy on someone that's not going to change their thought form. You're giving them a gift that, or you're taking some kind of karma lesson away that they need if they're not ready to do it. And if they're ready to let go on a spiritual level, then it's lawful. If they're not, I think that you're making karma if thinking you're going to be the healer and change something, because they have to be willing to wake up, because you're giving them new life. And it's like some of the biblical sayings, Jesus, I think, said something like, physician, healer, go and sin no more. That's what it was. Go and sin no more.
Right.
In other words, he's given them a lift, and he doesn't want to be accountable. That's why he says that to them. Change your way of life. In other words, you have to change your way. Otherwise, you're going to revert back to the old karmic level that you're at, and your pain, your illness is a karmic thing most of the time. So
Absolutely.
I
And
think
as
that it
well,
parallels with, yeah,
and as well, I don't think any of us who understand this energy work want to end up being reluctant messiahs either. We don't want to be that person that just everyone comes to get fixed, and then they run out and, you know, do whatever again, and they never do their
Right,
own work.
right,
And
right. I
help.
don't even want to bother with that. I give them an accountability. I let them know that they're accountable and they have to get on a higher rung of the ladder here. I don't like to,
Right.
I do not like to just go heal people, number one. Number two, the big thing in polarity, I learned that just love, no attachment, period. If I get attached to something, I take on the karma, and I'm not attached. I let God's will be done. And you basically can't get your ego, if you're any kind of a therapist, saying I healed this person. No, you're going to take on the karma if you do that. You have to be
Because
have to be unattached.
it's a symbiotic thing. It's between the healer and the client. It's symbiotic, correct? Because they have to be open.
There has to be a trust. You have
Yeah.
to have, the client has to have faith, otherwise the energy won't flow. I mean,
Right.
that's the other thing. If the client doesn't believe you, generally you're not going to have an energy flow.
Right.
So,
All right.
so that's
I think this is a good place for us to end part one. Thank you
Okay.
very much for being on the show, and everyone stay tuned for several more episodes.
part two.
Be well and be
Yeah,
well.
this has been exciting. And thank you for bringing this out in me, because I've never made these stories public. I have lots of stories.
I
The
love
nice
it.
thing about this, I've been gifted with stories, and I like telling stories, and people like stories. So, okay,
They do.
it's good.
They do like stories.
Till next time.
We're gonna talk
Yeah,
more, tell more stories. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Okay.